Welcome to our 43rd Wonderspace journey. My name is Steve Cole, and since September 2020, I have been asking the same 6 questions to people from around the world. The questions revolve around life and wonder, places of reset, and stories of hopefulness. Before we introduce our guest, our friends at asknature.org are going to help us to re-wonder.
How does a tiny mussel hold on to a rocky shore under the pressure of crashing waves? Its many anchoring threads are tipped with a 2-part adhesive. First, lysine pushes salt ions out of the way. Then dopa forms chemical bonds directly with the rock. These molecular forces, multiplied many times, keep the mussel firmly in place.
This week, our orbit will take us over France, Italy, and the city of Cairo. And to experience these views with us in this ultimate window seat, we welcome Thais Corral. Thais is a social innovator, entrepreneur, and ecological activist. She is the founder of Sinal do Vale, a Brazilian regeneration campus located near Rio de Janeiro, which serves as a centre for the regeneration of ecosystems, communities, and individuals. Thais was nominated by our 10th guest on Wonderspace, Pedro Tarak from Argentina. Here is Pedro telling us why he nominated Thais.
I was so proud of nominating Thais Corral for Wonderspace. Her life story has been an inspiration for so many of us at the regional level in Latin America and at the global space as well. Her past in feminism, later on in sustainability, and now in very concrete regeneration projects in the northeast of Brazil and in Rio de Janeiro have actually inspired all of us.
The full-length interview with Thais can be found on the Wonderspace Podcast, which you will find on our new website and on most podcast platforms. For this shortened video orbit, Thais answers 2 of our 6 questions, and I start by asking Thais to give us a glimpse into her life story so far, with an emphasis on what she is doing currently.
As a young person, I went to Italy. I lived there for 5 years. This was very critical in my education because being from Brazil and living when I was a young adult during the dictatorship, the horizons were quite narrow. I did a business administration, more into finding a high up a job, a well-paid job, and being an executive. And I changed all that to go to Italy, and it was the country that had the most progressive communist party, and it was between socialism and communism and socialism and capitalism. And so I had the privilege of being in Italy in those years. I completely changed my career there and became a journalist, which was very aligned with my curiosity and willingness to know people and have access to ideas and be informed and formed from people that I admire, and they had lives that were very different, from the references I had. So when I came back to Brazil, it was 5 years later. It was already the time when the dictatorship had ended and we had a civil government. And I was totally plunged into feminism and movements and the Green Party that was being formed in Brazil. So that was like my ecosystem, And from there, I invented a life. I ended up forming these 2 organizations, 2 NGOs. One was on human development and associated with gender, women, and environment. The other was a radio network, because I was, as a journalist in Italy, I worked on radio and saw the potential that radio had to reach women where they are. I was totally connected to this work. We built the did this network of 400 women's radio programs, and also created this big, huge movement also with an organization that I was invited to join in the United States that was called We Do, Women, Environment and Development Organization. And with We Do, we kind of create a new ground for women. That was women not talking only about questions that were related to the body or related to violence against women, which were the main agenda of the feminists until that time, but to take about the fate of the world, and talk about sustainable development and talk about how our civilization could be transformed. I remember when we started the 1992 Earth Summit process, knowing all the documents just talked about population. The problem was population. And we really fought against it and succeeded, because the last documents of the Rio Summit had have hundreds of references about women, about humanity. So I would say that my whole life since then has been about connecting, as an educator and as a change maker, connecting people to their own humanity, through the views of women, through the views of other people that maybe are not the ones that they related to, So recently, the last 15 years, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to a territory, and to really improving and creating models for this territory, which is Sinal do Vale. And we want to show all this idea of reforestation and carbon sequestration by forests and improve land degradation. We have the UN Decade for Ecosystems Restoration, but what we want to show with Sinal is that this should be done in a decentralized way by groups of people, and it has to include different aspects, not only the environmental, not only the reforestation aspects. So that's where I am right now. I would like to give one organization and one person, because I think that over the cycles of our lives, there are different influences, different people and the situations that influence you. But one that certainly keeps being a reference, for my life is an organization in Egypt that's called SECAM. When I visit them for the first time in 2010, I had this sense of something unique, and it had to do with this holistic perspective, because you have many entrepreneurs that do amazing things, but there was this aspect of creating an example of different combinations of the business, of the sustainable development, of the social, in a very difficult situation, which is the desert, and a very strong vision, with the spirituality and art and things that I truly believe that have to be strong components. So I still celebrate so much SECAM, and it was a strong inspiration for my doing Sinal. The other person that I would say that was inspirational to me, her story and how she kind of managed it was Wangari Maathai. I happened to be there. Then she won the Nobel Peace Prize, but when I met her, she had the Green Belt movement, the work with women. She was the first woman to have a PhD in Kenya, I think, on chemistry. And but her heart was always in politics, because she comes from a country that is so unequal, and so I would say brutal in terms of the minorities and all that. And she was saying the way she started the Green Belt movement is that she had thought that she wanted to build a movement for democracy. And then she saw that most of the people were illiterate, and she couldn't even talk to them about democracy and politics and all these concepts that were very far from their reality. But the space in which they live, and improving the space in which they live, they all would understand. How taking care of seedlings and planting trees would would help to restore things that they had lost in this brutal development, like restoring like the rivers, the places which were so dear to them. So that's how she started the Greenbelt movement. And most of the ones, I don't think she thought at the beginning about women, but the ones that really opened up to follow that orientation were women. And then it became the Greenbelt movement, formed majorly by women. But it came from that idea that no matter which is the small action you do, if it connects you from the heart, connects you to that connectivity of where you are and improving that area, it has a big force and impact because it connects you to something that is very real. No? And I think that when I talk and I see the 21st century and the transformation we had to do, I think that this is, I would say, is the main challenge. It has to make sense to everyone. It's not just the ones at the top or that have the great ideas or the great concepts and to know how to kind of move the world, the great thinkers. It's how to make people empowered in a very real way, So Wangari was the first one that I could understand that because she did something of an impact,
On the Wonderspace podcast, you can hear the extended interview with Thais, where she talks about the significant place she would want us to fly over. She also talks about her place of reset and the wonder of the natural world that blows the fuses. She finishes with an insight from an Indian philosopher. The podcast can be found at ourwonder.space. To find out more about the work and vision of Thais, go to sinalduvale.org. In her story of hopefulness, Thais talked about an amazing work in Cairo, and you can find out more at sechem.com. She also spoke about the Greenbelt movement in Africa, and you can find out more at greenbeltmovement.org. For our second year of Wonderspace, we have redesigned the website to make it easier to engage with all the previous 42 episodes. Go to ourwonder.space. I want to thank Thais for joining us on this Wonderspace, and I hope you can join us next week for more wonders and stories of hopefulness.